Okay, yeah, so as Mark has suggested, I am known as someone with a lavatorial sense of humour.
Oh, thanks.
And I got the feeling a couple of weeks ago that Mark was getting a little bit anxious about the content of my speech when he sent me a list of guidelines on how to make a suitable best man speech. So the first guideline was something like the best man should relate a story that should be fun and light-hearted, that should embarrass the groom. Of course, as I've known him so long, this shouldn't be a problem, as you're about to discover. The other guideline was the speech should be witty and amusing, but not crude or smutty. It should appeal to all generations. I had to think long and hard about this one. And in the end, I decided to strike a compromise and use only lurid terms that the younger generation would understand. I should stress again that actually my friendship to Mark over the last 20 years or so has been sustained, I'm sure Mark will agree, by a real vigorous exchange of abuse. Strictly verbal abuse. In fact, you could say that our friendship is inversely proportional to the strength of our friendship is inversely proportional to the kind words spoken between us. Now, you might think that using a mathematical expression to quantify a friendship is pretty anal, but if you knew Mark when he was a teenager, this is pretty typical of the kind of rubbish he used to come out with all the time. He's off, you know. So yeah, Mark had a real passion for technical terms, grammatical structures, long words, and I remember on one occasion Mark writing down the full writing pneumono ultramicroscopic silico volcanoconiosis down the full length of my 30-centimetre ruler. And then, of course, he proceeded to claim that one day he would have this tattooed down part of his body of equal length. So, I remember at the time thinking, yeah, man, that's really going to charm the ladies. So, Emily, did it charm you? Another one of Mark's fancies as a teenager was a liquid called cyanoacrylate. You're laughing, you don't even know what it is, do you? So, cyanoacrylate is commonly known as super glue. So, Mark would he would take this stuff to school and he would daub it on door handles and stationery, on me, that kind of thing. But so in the end, his sticky pranks caught up with him when a full bottle of the glue he had in his pocket at school leaked into his trace pocket and soaked into his underpants. So, at the time when I heard about this, I was praying that he hadn't discovered it until he'd gone to the toilet. I had this vision of Mark walking around school with his hands stuck down his pants, which actually probably wouldn't have been that unusual. I'm sure it happened when it came. So I'm going to tell. I've got a story next. I'm going to tell you a story about.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I can say this. Like I say, only the younger generation will understand this. This may be something you want to look up on your iPhones. But I'm going to tell you a story about teabagging. Teabagging, yeah. So my mum was very fond of Mark. But there was one occasion in which she wanted to kill him. We were at my parents' house in the newly decorated living room, and my parents were out, and Mark went to the kitchen, made some cups of tea, brought them back into the lounge, and he dunked his tea bag. He knows what it means. So, he's dunking his tea bag in tea, and then he proceeded to smack me around the face with the tea bag. Of course, that was funny, scalding tea down the face. But then we the horrible realisation that there was a line of tea splattering around 3/4 of the living room, all over the new velvet wallpaper, and all over the £1,000 curtains my mum had just bought. So obviously we made a real effort to clean up, and but of course if you knew my mum, there's only one standard of cleanliness, and that's her own. So I was in the shower the next morning, and all hell broke loose. I was dragged unceremoniously from the shower by my short and curlies, and given a good thrashing. Needless to say, Mark didn't appear for the next 2 weeks whilst I absorbed his share of my mum's hysterical chastisement. My speech wouldn't be complete without a reference to my yellow hard thing. So, my yellow hard thing was a name given to one of my childhood soft toys. It was a bear, which had been packed thoroughly, real hard with stuffing, so hence the name hard thing. And what we used to do, we would screw this fellow's head into the end of a slinky spring, you know, those things that walk down the stairs, and we would tie the other end of the slinky spring to the apex of my parents' house, and then we would drop this fellow out the window, and we would pull him into the back garden, and then we'd let this sucker go, and he would fly over the house, and he'd come down in the road which ran opposite my parents' house. So there'd be someone driving along in their car, and all of a sudden this projectile yellow soft toy would descend in their path, and then just as quickly disappear back into space. So we had a real... How we do for time, Mark? 5 minutes. There's plenty more. So, we had a real taste for crazy inventions, electronics, and on one occasion Mark used his knowledge of electronics to get closer to the opposite sex. I mean, really, for both of us, the normal conventional means of getting close to women was something far beyond us. So Mark decided he was going to create a listening device which picked up the sound vibrations off a girl's bedroom window, which we were both stalking at the time. This girl lived opposite my house, so it was, you know, it was kind of difficult for us not to stalk her, especially because I used to tease Mark and tell her that I used to watch her do yoga in the nude. And Mark would be like, "Oh man, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you invite me round?" And I'm thinking, well, even if that was true, I don't think I'd want to share the experience with you. So anyway, this machine actually wasn't so successful. I think the best sound, the clearest sound we ever got from this machine was the sound of her mum breaking wind whilst changing the bed sheets. So, those of you who know Lowestoft, Mark's hometown, will know as you approach the town, you see looming in the distance this great wind turbine. When we were there, when we were teenagers, that wasn't there, but what you would have seen as you approached South Lowestoft was this enormous aerial which was attached to the roof of Mark's house. This aerial facilitated Mark's hobby of DXing, which what he basically scanned the horizon to the east, and he picked up signals from Europe, TV signals. So his bedroom walls and ceiling were covered in maps with little pins in to indicate different places where he had picked up a signal from, and he had pictures of test cards in his room, and it all looked real nerdy, it looked real clever. But it took me a while to realise just how clever Mark was being, you see, because the real target of Mark's DXing was Eurotrash adult entertainment channels. Oh, it is. Yes, Veronica. So, Yeah, so following Mark's instructions, I also, quite keen to get some of this stuff on my own TV, will be hanging out my bedroom window with an aerial, just a short one, with a tuning knob to my TV. A tuning knob. To the TV, and I'd be watching fuzzy silhouettes of naked women whilst Mark watched them in full high fidelity. That takes me to the final story, perhaps my favourite. It began actually on my first meeting with Mark. He came to my house with Spencer, I believe, to discuss a band they'd just formed. Actually, a conversation that hasn't actually ever come to an end since. And my abiding memory of Mark at the time was him ridiculing my tiny hi-fi speakers. And then a few days later, I got the opportunity to go to his house and witness for myself some real man's hi-fi speakers. So Mark showed me how one could pull their bony buttocks onto the top of the speaker and feel the full bass sensation through the whole body as you listen to Motley Crue at, I don't know, top volume. So then... This is bad. So a few years later, I remember a conversation between me and Mark in which he explained how if someone was exposed to a loud enough sound at the right frequency, this could cause involuntary bowel movements. And of course I thought, yeah, that's cool, I would like to try that one now. And then of course I forgot all about it. And then, some years later still, Mark has got a job, he's got a disposable income. He's an adult, basically, but still, he decides he's going to convert his tiny Fiat Punto into this insane, pulsating bass chamber. And so he spends a couple of months building this ridiculous subwoofer, which fills the entire space of the boot. And then I'm hearing about this all the time. He's saying, yeah, eventually invites me over for a listen. And I just remember getting in the car, and there's Mark sitting there behind the steering wheel, with a big grin on his face, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he slaps on some 2-pack, he cranks the volume, and I just remember looking in the wing mirror, and I'm seeing the back of the car, the panels, and they're going... And I've got this feeling as if someone's got a toilet plunger down my throat, and then all my internal organs are all going... So, at that point, I remembered what Mark had said all those years ago, and as my ears started to bleed... Yeah, well, I don't know if it didn't really happen. But anyway, the story doesn't finish there. It turns out this speaker was so heavy and Mark's car was so feeble and puny that every time he accelerated, his front wheels lifted off the ground. So of course he had to get rid of it. So that's the story's over. So it just remains for me to give, I think it's traditional that the best man gives the groom some advice. And, not that he'd ever listen to me. But, so I've been happily married for over 10 years to my beautiful and wonderful wife Lauren here. Lauren. Yep, Lauren. So, but I can honestly say in those 10 years, this is perhaps the first time I've been able to speak for maybe over 10 minutes in her company without being interrupted. So, my advice to Mark would be to never make your wife the butt of your jokes in public. because while she's laughing now, when it comes to her fulfilling her marital vows, they're just not going to happen. So, toast. Just make a toast. So, let's say something meaningful. Hang on. So, me and Mark have had some wonderful times together over the years, some real great adventures. So, it's very easy for me to be sincere in wishing Mark the greatest happiness with Emily, the new Emily Arbon. And I hope that they really soak up today with everybody here, all their friends and family. And, well, to future happiness to the bride and groom, and also everybody here who's made this day possible. Yes. To future happiness.